heritage, site experience, personal vision, they really converge. You get. Now, a successful concept development would always require you as a student and a designer to translate your research findings, that's which I've already spoken about, all the precedent studies and the stuff that you did, the contextual like insights you have about all the emotional responses into designing spatial ideas. A strong concept will guide your form, your materiality, and even the construction sequencing. Take note, a strong concept would always guide your ideas. It will guide everything you do, including the form that you're coming up with, the materials you're going to use, and the construction sequencing. If you have a good idea, already your phasing plan is done because you know how you are going to, sequentially, geometrically, exponentially, however you want to call it, come up with that structure that will make people live in it. In the Ghanaian architecture, for example, concepts often emerge from like our cultural idioms, like the symbols we have, our environments, the metaphors, a lot of things. A lot of things. In studios these days, when you come to Jewish, Charlie, it's interesting. Some people get concept from tomatoes and they trace it back to some history and some other stuff. Someone from bread, Apollo, and stuff like that. It's interesting to see how all these things we eat, we consume, we kick around and stuff like that, informing what structure should be like. A student may design a learning center inspired by a baobab tree. Okay, baobab tree and learning center. What is the link? That's the first question. But one way or the other, through the storytelling and everything, it comes to bear that, oh, okay, there's actually a strong link between baobab and learning. What are we taking from the baobab tree? How is it influencing the material? How is it influencing the space? What is the evocative metaphor and the idea behind it? As a symbol of communal wisdom, somebody can use baobab tree. Said, okay, baobab tree is a symbol of communal wisdom because under the baobab tree, we all gather, beneath it, and then like the older folks, the chiefs, the elders, and understand, they will sit under the baobab tree, especially in the northern regions where it does so well. To think about the community, to brood about how to make it a better place for all of us. And so under the baobab tree, there've been series of chiefs, there've been series of elders, there've been series of deliberations, which leaves some sort of wisdom aura underneath it, which leaves a lot of some feeling and some spiritual wisdom that's all around the baobab tree. So you can say, okay, it's a fortress for wisdom. So let's use it as a concept to design any space. All these things you need to understand that this is an idea. Whatever it becomes is the intent that has to appear in the design. So if I take your design and it's looking like a baobab tree, perhaps maybe that's how you want it to look like form. That's maybe the evocative metaphor where you started from has now failed. So when you take up an intent, when you take up an idea, you need to express it through how you design a space. Now, if you want to say that you are using that wisdom from the baobab tree to design a space, how is wisdom reflected in the design? How are you ensuring that when the space becomes together, when everybody comes into the space, they're full wise, not to glitter around. They're full wise that this time around you come to the class and then this time around you close. They're full wise enough to know that you don't cheat in this place, you need to be wise. And all these things comes with how you incorporate technology and other stuff. And all these things are coming together to talk about the wisdom. Wisdom goes just beyond the abstract now. Now you are let's say um you are bringing it to bear, you are bringing it to the physical. You are actually going to show what wisdom is. So now we come up with intelligent buildings and everything. The word I want to use is manifesting. Now I want to manifest my wisdom in the design that you are doing, right? So all these things are very, very, very important. Now I want to look at another example that's okay. So let's say now a lot of us use Edinka symbols also. So if I was to use an Edinka symbol like Wamina Memoir, Jinyame, okay, let's use Diafe. So Diafe, we all know is a symbol for cleanness, for love, for feminine virtue and all that. So why should we use Diafe? Because maybe it shares social spaces in women's cooperative. So, okay, so we can use Diafe, not because of how it's like all the information that is around the intents, the evocative metaphor, the ideas, how it's going to make the space function. how is it going to make it usable, how is it going to make it relatable to women which you are designing for, how is it going to make it sensitive to the community or the social aspects of the environment we are living in. That is what makes GFA ideal for designing such spaces for feminine people, right? Now, most of these things are locally inspired by concepts that we demonstrate uh, locally. You understand? And it's basically cultural intelligence. If you have no idea your culture, you have no idea your history, then you don't know what you're going to. You can't even design a space that is making sense because already you don't even know where you are coming from. And so there's no contextual, I say contextual fluency. There's no contextual fluency. Contextually, you are not fluent. You get it. And so they also have to perform well, uh, you know, in every setting. Just take note of where you are designing it and make sure that you are fluent contextually. This makes your juries very, very, very interesting. It makes your jury fun. It makes your jury so loving. You understand? So developing a context is not or a concept is not just time action, but an evolving process. It begins with you brainstorming. You have to sketch, of course. You have to do mood boards. You have to do analogies. As a designer, you must ask questions like, why am I trying to see this? Or what am I trying to say with this space? What am I trying to do with this space? How does this form relate to the user's journey? Take the user's journey. You're supposed to design from people from the north. You have to take note of where they even started before they ended up where they are right now. What metaphor expresses the essence of their brief? Like these questions must always be there to sharpen your thinking, right? Some studios will use visual narratives or film stills to communicate concepts, helping the student to visualize the mood, their lives, the spatial transitions, and what, like in the advanced countries like this. These are things that they put in place. But we are in an era where even students go to the extent of using poems, storytelling, music, and other stuff to communicate their concept, which is fantastic. In concept, you are not limited to anything. You can come up with any strategy you want to communicate your idea. If it's about writing a poem, write a poem. If it's about writing a rap, write a rap. If it's about writing a music or a song, write it. If it's about doing a video or a sketch like drama, showing whatever you can do and all that. I feel is the best way to communicate your idea. Just do it. You understand? And this is really, really, really crucial. Visualization, we don't take it for granted. So there's always a technical aspect also to the concept development. Once you're thinking about all the abstracts, the social aspects and everything, the qualitative aspects, you need to think about the quantitative aspects, which is the technical aspects of the concept development. A good concept must be flexible enough to adapt to the constraints, but strong enough also to remain present throughout the scheme. Take note, a good concept must be flexible enough to adapt to constraints, but strong enough to remain present throughout the scheme. We should resolve like the structural systems, maybe circulation in a space, daylighting, and all those things that we always see, the environmental strategies, the material choice, and all that in the quantitative way, right? You must take note of all these things. This could be inspired by maybe use some woven fabrics to dictate not only the facade textures, but also to have space overlap, to create light penetration and user interactivity in the space. There's so many ways that you can carry yourself and your skin in different ways that will make it very, 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 very interesting. It's just about understanding what it is and then thinking about how to communicate it. Sometimes a lot of you have interesting stuff, but communication becomes so difficult that whatever you have in your heart and in your brain remains in your heart and in your brain, and it's not brought to bear, it's not manifesting in your work. And when I see that, to me, it's disheartening. You see the students struggling, but then to some of you, maybe I can help you to bring it out. But some too, you need to develop the strong will to, to actually communicate your idea. One day you are becoming a big architect in your office, big designer doing everything. The client has paid, and the client will not be there to guide you to bring the words out of your mouth. You still need to bring everything to satisfy the client to the fullest. So yeah, of course, that is the idea embodied in every design layer, not merely in words, but also in showing graphically, visually, and making it engaging. Again, historically, monumental architecture, like let's say University, okay, let me go out of University and look at the broader scope. Let's say the Larabanga Mosque, or the traditional Nzulezu, stilt houses. They began from like conceptual principles. It didn't just pop up like that. they actually conceptualize, if you don't know. It could be spiritual symbolism. It could be a response to, abiotic factors in our localities or where we live. Who knows? Maybe in Zunezu, they were trying to get themselves around solving a flooding issue, and then they ended up being on top of the water. It becomes very creative, interesting, and then now it becomes a thing. Now everybody in Zunezu knows how to construct on water, which makes them, to me, very unique than other Ghanaians. Because what we do is to construct on land. What about those who construct on water? How did they even go about it? What's the dynamic? And some of the structures they have been living like 20 years, 25 years, and they are still counting. And I'm just being lenient right now. I don't even want to talk about those that have been 40 years, 50 years, and counting, and still counting, and still counting, and still counting. They design on water, hello, something that everybody is running away from. So that is intrinsic and unique. Designers again, we must as always as we can treat concepts as blueprints for thoughts. Our designs, our concepts must always be the blueprints of our thoughts. What's in our brain should not be the blueprint, not something from somewhere. As clear as it should be, authentic concept is a way that compasses everything that we do, and it keeps the designer on course. You know what a compass do? It always keeps us on course. So if you have a very clear and authentic concept, it keeps you on a very nice mission, on a very nice spot. Even when critics or deadlines attempt to do the process. Sometimes when you know what you're doing, and you're bringing a masterpiece, you're not afraid of deadline because you know wherever you have reached, if you pin up, they will tell you it's an incomplete, so go and finish that and come for your A. But when you know that whatever you're doing doesn't even make sense, you are scared of deadline too. So sometimes it's about having that compass of good work, then you are good to go. Right. And so that would be for concept development in design. What about the impact of sketching? The power of sketching and visual thinking. Now, sketching is the architect's first language. Long before like computer aided design, building information, modeling or building information modeling, the BIM software entered their profession. Uh, Designers, architects alike relied on freehand drawing to explore design ideas. Even today, the most celebrated architects like Zaha Hadid, Tadao Ando, Sir David Ajay, which we can never mention without mentioning him, continue to emphasize the irreplaceable role of sketching. You can never replace sketching. Even if it's an iPad or Sketchpad or whatever software you're using, you are still sketching. Sketching doesn't take cognition of the medium, but the product or how we are trying to communicate that process. You get it. That is what sketching is. And I always say something about sketches. I always say that, sketches are like we can't say your sketch is bad. We don't have a bad sketch or we don't have a beautiful sketch. No, we only have mature sketches and immature sketches, if that's a word. The sketch must be mature. And when you see a sketch that is mature, you know that actually this sketch is really mature. And so the sketches always carry messages aside what they seek to reveal. It shows how serious you are. It shows how mature you are. You can come up with a sketch and you start to look at it. I remember I did a sketch like that when I started my master's program. And the person was like, Charlie, this is a sketch. Already got to an A. It's just conceptual. And if the sketch is looking this beautiful, you can imagine how rendering will look like. That's the whole idea. So you must communicate your sketches and do it very, 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 very well. Nice, right? Again, Ghanaian students, Ghanaian architects, like one professor will always say, architects, sketches more than just drawing exercise.